amazing. Well, the last time I had photos taken with our, ESM hoodies, I still use that for everything. It's a nice photo.
Someone did not have time to have any kind of break from the session. Raise your hands, like you didn't have time. Okay. I'm very sorry. We will find a solution in a way.
No, but it's got your MFS network notes in there as well.
Okay. As you maybe know, like João Pinto is our international president.
He's Portuguese.
He's Portuguese. His local section is Iesaninho. He's Portuguese. And
he likes cats.
He has a cat. Balthazar, something like that.
Stole his Instagram profile?
Not yet. He's very smart. It's okay?
Yeah.
I can teach you how to say hello to him in Portuguese. Hola!
Is that Spanish?
No,
it's
Spanish. It's not hola. It's hola.
Is there like a specific Portuguese hand gesture that goes along with it, or is that just Italian? Is there like a specific Portuguese hand gesture that goes along with it, or is that just Italian? Is there a hand gesture that goes along with the hola, or is that just Italian?
No, only Italian.
Obrigada. I needed the international. Marcos. João, it's late. Very disappointing. This Portuguese, like,
Why would you not have to go to this?
We should have given him like 10, 15.
Come on.
Where is this one? In Portugal?
in Brussels. I think maybe.
Is it Portuguese normally only half an hour?
Yeah.
In the best case scenario.
Sicilian 2 hours?
Sicilian 3. They have another time zone.
I tested it there.
Here.
Yeah, that's not 5 minutes ahead of schedule.
Shall we try it? Like,
Yes, I'm not very good at telling jokes. Yeah. Do you have, like, not my best part, like, do you have a joke?
Because you're a funny man.
I feel that you are the right man for the job.
I'll feel stressed now. I know which one. We can do that.
I think it's too like
Oh, I could do an energizer. Hello, my lad.
So I give you a challenge for the event. Look around in the room. At the end of the event, you have to talk to everyone that attending the meeting. Like
not
look
the right
around if
region to
there is
ask that.
someone you didn't talk to yet.
Me, I didn't talk to everyone.
Someone in Sweden.
Okay.
Oh, it's here.
Oh, here we go. It's Marcus.
It's
Wow.
mine.
Hola.
Hi, Joe.
Last one.
What is it?
We got you.
Anyway.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay!
Good. Well, good morning. Good evening.
Good morning. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure. I have my coffee, so I'm going to have breakfast with you, if that's okay.
We just finished the coffee break, so we have the same one. Okay, so the floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you so much for... oh, I can also see you. That's amazing. I see the floor as well. Hey, guys. Hi.
Hola.
Great.
Hola!
Oh, that's cool. I actually attended the Swedish MP back in 2000, in Shopping, yes, 17 I think maybe. So that's fun to remember that time. It was very cold in Shopping. Here it's 22 degrees here. I'm actually in my parents' house. So you can see that I'm surrounded with books and I don't know. There's a parrot over there. You might hear some birds chirping as well. That's their birds. And if the dogs bark, you're gonna have to excuse me. I'm actually in Portugal for a friend's wedding tomorrow. So you're my break here in this family mood. But it's with all pleasure that I join you here in Sweden to talk about the value of PSN as an organization that is united and made of different people from different corners of the world, making great things together. And actually last year at EGM, I had a presentation called ESN and Education. And in this presentation, I was precisely trying to show to people how powerful it is when we act together as a network. And if you allow me, I will actually share my screen with you, and I'll make just a little part of the presentation, the same as last year's AGM. I don't make all of it because of time management, but the first part I think can give us a nice glimpse into this added value of PSN, and then maybe there's still 2 or 3 minutes for a couple of questions after that. And I hope this will work. So if you allow me, I'll share my screen now with this presentation. I'm not sure how it's going to go with the PowerPoint, but hopefully it's going to go well. So let me see if I do my entire screen. Let me see if I do my entire screen. No, wait. If I do a window. Yes, a window. Share. Do you see what I'm seeing?
No. No.
Huh?
No, we can't.
You cannot see.
No, we can just see you.
The right down corner, it says present.
Just me.
Right down corner. Okay, now yes.
Great.
Technology. Technology is cool, man.
Got it.
Okay, amazing. And you can also hear me, right?
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'll be actually very brief with this. What I just want us to wonder is the fact that ESN at all levels actually is an organization made of students helping students. Myself, actually, in this little trip I'm making here back to my home country, on Tuesday, I will go back to see my PhD coordinator because I'm enrolled in a PhD. And myself, in one of these days, I'm going to have to prepare the timeline for my PhD and review some literature to propose to her. As after the board mandate, I'll go back to my PhD. So even myself, I'm actually a student as well. And this is a reality, I would say, for 95% of the network. Students helping students. And that's what makes us quite unique and special, I would say, is the fact that across all levels, this is always true. But there's also a fact that a few of us are not necessarily students, and that's perfectly fine, and actually perfectly important for the organization, because those are the ones also enabling students to be students helping students. So in reality, all members, the students, the majority of them, and the non-students make this happen. And what we do is that all of us, essentially, we provide services and activities for students across the continent. And those services can be, for example, when you help them finding a house, or when you are a buddy of a student. That's actually a service that you're providing. It's a free service, of course, but it's nevertheless a service. Or when you organize that nice party, or that trip, or that social event, whatever that is that you're organizing, that's of course an activity. And those services and activities make us quite successful, but I don't think that that's the only explanation why ESN is so successful in that mission. And in my idea, the reason why we are so successful is because we are students helping students at all levels. At the national, at the international, at the local, at all levels, we are students helping students. And I would like to illustrate this, this reality with a small graph here. So basically, of course, the students are at the very base of our activity, right? And the students, they arrive to some institution. So they arrive to one university, and now they're enrolled in the Erasmus program or whichever other exchange program they are coming to your country, to your city. And now they have their own academic dimension covered. However, the reality is that universities cannot cover all the needs of the students. So let's face it. In the International Relations Office, they will not have the time, they will not have the capacity.
João, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
We don't see that you are like scrolling the presentation. Like we are just seeing the first screen.
Really?
But you are not scrolling.
Maybe you can send without going into presentation mode. So we can see.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, now it's working. Now you are changing the slides. But okay.
You see this?
Yes. But it
Okay,
was
that's the whole
start
thing.
in the first one. In the first one.
But you see the number, you see the slide with the grid, right?
Yes.
Okay, then we'll just stay with this one. This is an illustration. It was better with the animation, but you can download the presentation and you're going to see that things come with animation. And there's also a version of this presentation with notes. And so you can just read the notes and the presentation and you'll get all of it. But the only thing I want you to understand in this graph right here is that actually the students are the base, right? And if you look to the left, that column is the column of the institutions that care about those students. And if you look to the right, that's where ESN is placed. And what I want to illustrate with this graph is that the student does come to one university, and there's a local institution right there to receive the students, to provide all the academic needs of the students. But this is not everything the student really needs. The student will need, for sure, support, well, again, in finding accommodation. In some countries, it's covered already by the university, but in some it's not. And within the same country, it can change from city to city. The student also, of course, needs places where he or she can meet other students and create a meaningful connection with those students. And that's where the local section comes in, with all the activities and services it provides. Now, of course, local section has a relationship with the university. That's the horizontal arrow that you see there, the first one on the bottom. That's relationship, that first square actually, between the local level, the institution, and the student, so it's a triangle, that's what I'm saying. That first triangle is the very base and the very reason why ESN exists in the first place. So of course, ESN does not exist without the local level. ESN does not exist without the work done with institutions, and certainly does not exist without the students. Now, the reality is that education, as a topic, higher education, primary education, any kind of education, it's actually a responsibility of your countries. So education is actually a responsibility of the Swedish state. The Swedish state is responsible to educate its citizens. It's responsible to create policies to educate their citizens. It's also people responsible to accommodate the needs of young people in the country, being their foreign young people or national young people. On that square on the left, national institutions, those would be the governments, those would be the universities that actually, or the umbrella universities that actually run the Erasmus program in the country, run the legislation in the country. And they are, of course, connected to universities. At ESN at the national level is very much responsible to follow on these policies. If there's nobody there, the reality is that universities will miss this link with the national policy dimension. The national level of ESN is essential to follow every single update that is done at the policy level, with the government, with the national agency. It's equally responsible to create better conditions for the sections to act, because the national level will negotiate with national partners using the power of numbers. One thing is to go to a partner and say, I work with 100 students in my university. That might be just fine for that local partner in your city. A completely different thing will be to say, I work for, 5,000 students in my country, and that's across the whole country, from the very south to the very north. The partner will give you different conditions. It's just a matter of mathematics, right? Say I can give you 5,000 people to use your service. The partner will for sure provide you a better discount, better conditions in that service. And that eventually benefits all the sections, while it will also benefit the national level. And more than that, as a whole, because we are so much connected as a network, right there you have one person in a charity team coming from Italy. So we are so connected in the whole network that when you get good partners, when you get good relationships with your national agency, your governments, that ends up benefiting as well the Italian network. Now finally, you have the international level. Well, we are called Erasmus Student Network. The Erasmus program is a program run by the European Union. And the European Union is a organization at international level with whom, with which we connect very much. Let me just stop sharing. Now you'll see me. You'll see me, right?
Yeah.
Hola.
Yes? Okay, so I'll just go here, the presentation. So the European Union works at international level with many other stakeholders, many other organizations. Our goal in this international is to follow that work. Every week, for sure, every week, I will have a meeting with at least one person from the European Union, being one European Parliament deputy, being somebody from the Commission, doesn't matter. But for sure, I'll meet somebody once in a week. And when I do that, sometimes I pinpoint particular problems from particular sections that I'm aware of, as your presidents tell me, your division officers tell me, and I'm aware of some particular problems, and I have the opportunity to pass that directly to the highest decision makers in Brussels. Sometimes I talk about this, and sometimes I talk about macro problems that affect the whole continent. For example, we were fighting a lot for more inclusion in the program, because not everybody can go across. And when we say that, we are actually talking about all the 350,000 students we work with every year. ESN works because we do this in a very much interconnected way. That one student that goes to your section, that one student that goes to BDH, that one student is actually being tackled by ESN BDH, is being tackled by ESN, but also by ESN International. And all the three levels are working actually together for that one student. And that's why I think it works so well, and why in our 3rd anniversary this year, we are making great progress. Myself, I actually started as a local member as well. My first position was a local secretary in ESN Minho, my home section. And from there, I started working with the students. I joined ESN to meet people. I did not join ESN after my abroad experience. I joined because I didn't know anybody in that city. It was a new city for me. And I decided it was a great organization to meet people. And eventually, 6 years later, it was in March 2013 when I joined. 6 years later, here I am in a live discussion with the Swedish national platform. And the reality is that any of us can do that. The organization is democratic. It's open to anybody. So if that's your dream, if that's something you'd like to do as well, to represent this large organization and be in Brussels, talking about that one student, but also about all the students, believe me, that's something you can do as well. And eventually, through the national level and international level, your spot is also there. So that's a short message I wanted to share here this morning, but I'm definitely welcoming a couple of questions if you guys have any to share with me.
Okay, we can open the speaker list, Jonathan, but I think we need to use the microphone. Someone else? Yeah.
I can read it on my.
Jonathan, try to
speak. Okay. Yeah?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Thank you for your fantastic presentation, firstly. My name is Jonathan from ESN Malmo. I just have a quick question in regards to your progression through ESN. And I wanted to know what you consider to be your biggest challenge. Well, I suppose it's fair to say rising through the ranks of ESN.
We lost him.
I guess we'll never know.
Challenge fighting for the rights of the students. Is that it?
Sorry, we had a problem with the audio. João, can you repeat it?
Yeah, I can hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Joe, it was actually the question was. I think probably you heard it correctly. Was what was your biggest challenge that you felt yourself over since 2013 when you joined ESN? What was your biggest challenge while rising through the ranks of ESN, and how did you overcome it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yes. Look, I pinpoint one challenge. I think that one of the biggest challenges I face, but I face this on a daily basis. This is not going away. At a different scale today, I feel it's different from when I started, even at the local level, but still it's quite challenging, is making people, mainly institutions, organizations, the universities, the European Union, etc., making them fully understand the potential ESN can have. That's why a couple of years ago we introduced the concept of the causes of ESN. It's because I always struggled to make them understand why is social Erasmus such an amazing thing. At some point I understood that one problem with the communication was because we were not speaking the same language. So the causes very much help translating our activity, social Erasmus, exchange moving Europe, etc., into the language of the stakeholders. So today I say, yes, ESN does a great job when it comes to social inclusion, as we work with this many students, and in that field, we talk about active citizenship, intercultural dialogue, etc., etc. So it's getting better, but it's still a big challenge, making people fully grasp our potential. So that's why, for example, the AGM is so important, because especially the welcome ceremony, because there we can really showcase to a few of the stakeholders the kind of things we do. But I would like to link to this challenge another challenge I face daily basis. And I will be honest with you, being here is also part of that challenge, is making all of the volunteers swing in the same direction. It's not that simple. When you want to be very strong with a team, with a topic that is very pressing right now in society, and you know that if you are very strong with that topic, you're going to get amazing things in return, and you're going to make the organization progress, you do need all the volunteers to go in the same direction and act united. Because if 15,000 people act united, the impact is gigantic, right? And one particular example is right now the European Union elections, which are coming up in May. And we are doing a big campaign at international level about the European Union elections. And it's very important for us that the whole network is united in that one cause. And when it comes to the EU elections, we actually don't engage that much in telling people in who they should vote for. We don't go for political parties. We don't talk about, we can as a person, privately, but not as a sender wearing the flag and the hat. But what we do say, though, is that if people like the Erasmus program, and most people do like, they should vote for Erasmus. And voting for Erasmus can be voting on any side of the political spectrum, as long as that political party is defending the future of the program. So I actually invite you to look into the materials that we have been producing at international level, to look into one event that we have created, where we're going to be sharing a few of those things. The event has been shared many times on informal group, but I'm sure Joanna can also share with you and Marcus as well. And join that event and spread the message about voting for Erasmus and acting together as one network, so that we can be very, very, very strong to those stakeholders. Yeah, that will be about it.
Thank you very much. Then we have Dana.
There's one more.
Hi, Joao. Oh, can you hear me? Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Dana, Education Officer. One of the big accomplishments in ESN in relation to education and technology has been the development of the Erasmus app. And recently, our national agency, higher education agency, approached us to represent the student perspective at a conference being held in Stockholm regarding the digitization of the Erasmus Plus program overall, specifically about the functionality of the app. So I've gotten some feedback, but I just kind of wanted to ask you personally if you think there's something special or specific that we should share at this conference. I'll be presenting in front of our national agency as well as Erasmus coordinators and IRO members from a number of universities all across Sweden.
Right. Look, the app is the Erasmus Plus app. For those who don't know, there's an app, right, for the Erasmus Plus program, and anybody can download. You can download right now. And this app, I will share two things when it comes to the app. Two main messages, let's say, but I'm thinking a lot on the policy level. There's a lot of technical messages to share. I know we are in touch in an email threads. I think Rasmus already answered.
Yeah.
But in any case, I'll double check after this call. So that's how that's going. But at the policy level, when it comes to the app, I always share two messages. It's already a cassette, so I already know what to say there. One message is that it's an app that is funded by the European Union, by the European Commission, in particular, to facilitate the contact between the students that want Erasmus and the Erasmus program itself, right? So as a program. And that's amazing because ESN is also building this app. Some of our members in our office, we have an office in Brussels with 15 people working full-time. 5 of them are board members and are staff members. And we have 2 people working in IT in our office. And one of them is also working in the development of the app. So that's one app that you have on your phone is also co-done, let's say, by ESN. So I always make sure to share the idea that it's amazing that on your phone you're scrolling through something that has a lot of students and work. That's one message I share. The other message I also share is that the app has one functionality where you can find the events closest to you. So if you're a student and you go to a city, you turn on your GPS, the app has a geolocation, and it will tell you which are the events that are happening nearby. Those events are ESN events only. So those events are the events that you guys organize and upload on ESN satellite. ESN satellite communicates with the app, and the app will show the students events happening nearby. So this means that a student in Lichtenstein can go to Gothenburg without knowing anybody in ESN Gothenburg, just turns on the app and will see what ESN Gothenburg is doing right now. And I find that amazing. So it's all levels, actually. It's a great example on all levels working together in the development of the service. So I will share those two key messages, which you can share very easily in 1 minute.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye. Fantastic. So we're done, right? I know there's one more question.
We have one more question. And someone else who wants to ask something as well? Ellen? Someone else? Okay, because guys, we are a bit out of time. Okay, and then...
Vrijland, ESN Gothenburg. Thank you for mentioning ESN Gothenburg. Do you have any concrete recommendations for how to stimulate local ESNers to get more involved in the national level of ESN and the international level?
The local ESNers to be involved on the national, international level. Right?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Yes, it's always a struggle, this one question, and especially in some countries more than others, because it has to do a lot also with the studies cycle. I can tell you, for example, that there's one country where in the local level they get to do local ESN professionally. They take 1 year off and they're just doing ESN because that's the national legislation. It helps that happening. And then, of course, they don't get any incentive to go to the national level the year after because they will not be doing this full time. They have to go through their studies. So every country will have a different answer to that question, I think. But in general, what I can say, there I also share 2 messages. I have these things I have to imagine. I have these things so much in my head that I already know how many numbers of messages I have to give. So I have 2 messages there. One is more on the level of the responsibility for the students. So if you join the local level because you really enjoy supporting the students, the reality is that ESN would not be doing a good service without the national level. We would be missing on a very important dimension on student provision. For this reason, it is the responsibility of the local members to take care of the national responsibilities when the moment arrives for them to step up, apply for the national level. If they don't do that, they're actually failing. As hard as it might sound, the reality is that they're actually failing with the mission of the organization. Without national level, ESN cannot fulfill its mission. So if there's no national level, we are failing with our mission. That's just a pure reality. So it's a responsibility of the local level to step up and embrace the challenge of the national level as well. So that's one message. The other message is that myself, I have been through all the levels and I have done many different things in all the levels. At the national level, I've been National Communication Manager, NR, and National Vice President. So I was three positions there. And also audit. So I did a bit of everything in this level. And I can tell you that even today, if I would go to another position or to the same position, I would learn just so much. The learning curve in the national level is just so intense. You really, really get a lot out of the experience, in my opinion. You get with people you were working with, because you are with people on the same boat as you, quite literally, if it's a Seattle. You are with people doing the same thing as you, with the same challenges, so you get a lot.
No. Stop talking.
People from all the continents. You are the president. You are literally meeting with people from the national agency, from perhaps the national government, from somebody at the national level, which can also open personal doors to you if that's the profession you wish to follow. I can tell you myself, to finish with my personal experience. My PhD was about a certain topic. In ESN, I have learned so much about international education and the role of the Erasmus program in changing society and in making it so much more, so much better, that I decided, and that's what I'm going to pitch. That's going to be my challenge. So bear with me. Let's see if it works. On Tuesday, I'm going to pitch to my PhD coordinator to change the topic a little bit and to make it a bit more about the Erasmus program in my PhD. So myself, even now at international level, there's just so much I'm taking that I will bring even to my studies. So the two dimensions I was mentioning is that it's both a responsibility for the local level to step up, but it's also a huge opportunity. The opportunities we provide with the national and international level are tremendous. It would be a waste if you wouldn't take that opportunity.
Thank you, João. So, guys, we are really late on the agenda. So, if you want, we can go for other questions. But remember that we have also the national coordinator candidacy later on. So, or I have to be very strict on the question round later on. Like if you want to ask other questions, because we won't have, like at a certain point we have to leave the room. So like if you have very concise and clear questions to ask in order to let João also answer in a, let's say, fast way. Ellen was before you. Sorry.
Ellen, yes, and background. Now that your mandate is going to end soon, I just wanted to know from you what you think, what you will miss the most about your current involvement in ESN.
What I will miss the most about my current involvement in ESN? It will sound cheesy. It's really true, believe me. I will miss, I cannot say I will miss the people in general. I don't want to say I will miss some people, but I do want to say I will miss the interaction with the people. I really enjoy it. Look, it's Saturday morning on the weekend, and I'm here with you, and I'm doing it from the bottom of my heart with a lot of pleasure. And I'm certain I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss the opportunity to interact with a lot of different people, some of the brightest people in the continent, in higher education, with a lot of different backgrounds. Some are biologists, some are geologists, some are studying English literature. So you always have something to learn and to talk about with our members. I'm very certain I'm going to miss that interaction.
We have another question.
Hi, I'm Alex Yazameco. You said that you have a lot of meetings with different politicians and people from the government. But my question is how complicated it is to push the ideas of the ESN into the European government. How complicated it is to make them hear what you want to propose.
Okay. How complicated it is? Well, luckily, we work, as I was saying, we work in a network. So the way things go is that if it's to work with a national government, I will work together with the country. So if I have to work with the Swedish government, I will certainly work with Marcus. And the national board as a whole. I will certainly work with them when it comes to tackling the Swedish government. So we work as a team there, and we tackle them, let's say, from the bottom to the top, let's say. So when I meet them in Brussels, I grab them and I say something. When you meet them in your country, you do the same. And this happens across the network, in most of the countries, those that have a national level with that kind of capacity. Not all countries have, unfortunately. And then another thing that I do, so point out three things. One is this work in the network. The second is that we very much have a lot of documents. We have our policy decisions, our priorities very well documented. I recommend that you go to the wiki of ESN and you just go to the search bar and you look for general policies. Those general policies tell you what is ESN's stance in basically every single topic out there. So you can know, if I have to talk about, what is our stance on social inclusion of students from a rural background, from the countryside. I know that in the general policies I can find the general stance of ESN. Then I can build on that for specific topics. And that's the case of our manifesto. We have an Erasmus Upgrade manifesto that was done about 1 year ago, together with the national presidents. And you can also find online. And then the third thing about convincing them about our priorities. One thing that we all have to understand when it comes to national governments, but also when it comes to other sections or countries, we always refer to them as bodies, right? The section things. The government has done them. In reality, they're just people, right? So they're just like you and I. So it's not necessarily the government has done. Probably that decision was taken by a group of people within the government. What I do is that I track those people. I try to understand who they were. But also in the section, if there's something that the section has done that I need to understand, I track who did it in the section. Then I go to the person. And when we relate on a personal level, it's just so much easier. So a lot of my time is invested in personal relationships. You do have to go sometimes to have a lunch meeting with somebody. You do have to go and after work maybe have a beer with somebody. And that's part of work. Because that personal connection will help you later in achieving the goals you want. Working as a network, policy well supported by documents, and personal relationships. I think that will be the combo.
Thank you.
Thank you. So guys, we have to close the speaker list. And João, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Muito obrigada. And I don't know if you want to say something to close the session.
No, I just want to say that I very much look forward to see some of you in Thessaloniki at the AGM. I'm sure I will see some faces there. So when you see me at the AGM, please do come and say, hey, I was at Christianity, and we'll have a little chat. All right, I'll be around. So you'll see me somewhere. So just poke me, okay? And enjoy your MP. And have a great weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye, thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.
I hope you enjoyed the session. It was very, very interesting. So now I would like to ask Marcus to come to the stage to present the Secretariat of ESN Sweden. And if you can, please.
Should we perhaps insert a quick coffee break and toilet break because they've been sitting here since 9 o'clock?
It's true, but we are already super late. So
no. I can do a super rushed version of it.
Let's see how fast you can be with your presentation.
Yeah. Secretary good, no secretary bad. Thank you.
So guys, just read the documents, yes?
No. Is this European election or are you doing the secretary?
Yeah. Sorry, our technical assistant is not very technical. I didn't.
Well, that's good. So he's also presenting some stuff.
Okay, we can forgive you.
And you're good.
We like you. You're very funny.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I know that you are quite depleted on energy and want to have a break, so I'm going to do this as concise and quickly as I can. Secretariat of ESN Sweden.
As of today, ESN Sweden is faced with a lot of challenges. Many of them are related to human resources, as I mentioned. In the national board, it's an immense workload, and there's so much more that we want to do and we can do, but we don't have enough manpower to do it. We have somewhat stagnated due to this, especially when it comes to the operating grant. For you who doesn't know what the operating grant is, it is a huge grant that we apply for as a national board. More specifically, it's been the president who applies for this grant the previous years. And that's why I think that we're stagnated a bit. During the entire summer, the president sitting has to do a lot of secretary work, just paperwork. In my case, I didn't have time to develop or put a concrete action plan for my mandate at all, so things were standing still. And it probably will if we continue this way. The board does a lot of administrative work, and it's not focusing all too much about the development, and we're at a halt, so to speak. We have so many opportunities as a country as well. We are qualifying for a lot of grants that we're not even applying. For example, if coming to projects and events, we want to implement a national training event called Motivate, where all of the members in ESN Sweden can come and be a better ESNer. And we qualify for, I think, ESAA and a lot of other grants, but we don't have enough resources to apply for money even if we will get money if we apply. We just don't have enough manpower to apply for it. And I also think that if we manage to come over this immense workload, it will be a lot more appealing to join the national board. As for now, I know there are a lot of people hesitating due to, well, it's a full-time job and you don't get paid, blah, blah, blah. So I think that if we allocate the resources better, I think it will be a lot more appealing to be in the national board. So how do we tackle these challenges? How do we deal with this issue? We, as National Board, propose to implement a secretariat in ESN Sweden, which takes care of the network's administration. The composition of the secretariat varies depending on the national projects and grants of ESN Sweden, and the secretariat includes paid positions. First sentence, it's quite general, meaning we can delegate tasks to the secretariat that can be focused on applying for grants, or perhaps just dealing with, as Janos said it so nicely yesterday, it's a lot of housekeeping work in ESN Sweden. And the National Board does a lot of housekeeping work, and that's also due to why we're stagnating a bit. The composition of the secretariat varies depending on the national projects and grant of ESN Sweden. We want the framework of the secretariat to be super flexible. From year to year, the sections will vote on an action plan to the national board of things that you want us to do. And if we, as a national board, if we don't have the allocated resources in the correct field, and we perhaps want to focus more on this particular subject, we want the flexibility to add more resources into that. So from year to year, the Secretariat will focus on different grants and projects, and the Secretariat includes paid positions. This is not unusual in ESN nowadays. It's something that a lot of national countries do. France have already done it 3 years ago, and it's been hugely successful. I think that Greece and a lot of other countries as well are working on implementing it. But right now, the ESN France is a huge leader in this field, and I've been having quite a lot of consultations with them to just take best practices. So of course, how do this tackle the challenges? The board gets to do less administrative work, we'll have enough manpower to apply for grants. It will be, the operating grant will not be done by the president, instead it can be done by the secretariat, meaning that we open up, we clear the road for ESN Sweden to continue our development. How do you seize these opportunities? With a secretariat that is built on paid positions, it won't be, currently I can't delegate the operating grant application to any other position in the network. It's the most boring stuff you can imagine, and I don't want to put any volunteer on this. my worst enemy. So having a secretary that gets paid to do this ensures a equality in each application, and it will be an annual grant that we get, and it's a lot of money. It's 100,000 euros if we get it. So imagine having 100,000 euros annually as a secure income for our network, going from ESN Sweden and then down to the sections, without being affected by the year-to-year performances by our volunteers. And with the secretariat, we can apply for more grants, more money. Yay. Looking long term, as I've said, the framework right now is super general, how we imagine it. But looking even further ahead, we will probably get huge financial support to our network. ESN Sweden is already amongst the top richest countries, ESN countries, and we, due to sea battle, we already have a super strong financial situation, and we can support our section so much more with grants, etc. Perhaps we'll have a office in Stockholm of the secretary to sit and work full time, as in France. Full-time employees. We can go quite far with this, and we truly believe that this is the next step for ESN Sweden to go. We can't do anything more just on volunteers. This will benefit not only the national level, but you as a local level as well. Yeah, I can't emphasize enough how this has been on the agenda for 3 years, and now we want to do it. So when we come to the propositions are statutes and standing order changes proposed by us, the board. We will present the concrete changes to our statutes needed to implement the secretariat. So I will go more into that in an hour or something. That was the rough version, so any questions?
Okay, so we open the speaker list. Ellen?
Hey, this Senate.
Lily, Alex.
Marcus.
Marcus.
Sarah.
Manush.
Okay. Ellen, please.
Ellen, yes, is that correct? Who would decide what kind of tasks the secretariat gets, and how would you ensure that their relation works so that they actually do their job, and that it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm too busy as a national board member and I just give my work to someone who gets paid and then I can relax?
Alright, so the first question, who decides what the secretariat will do? The sections decide on the action plan for ESN Sweden, and it's up to the board to accomplish this action plan during this mandate. And I envision the secretariat as a tool for the national level to use in the attempt to accomplish your action plan. And I also want it will be a privilege for the board to have the secretariat. It will be a good tool for them to use. If we choose the other options to let the sections choose directly the tasks of the secretariat, we would need to use either our national platforms, virtual national platforms, or online votings. And during my year in ESN Sweden, I can tell that that's quite, it takes a lot of work. I mean, we wouldn't really relieve ourselves of any workload because we would need to have more national platforms, virtual national platforms. So I think that this should be up to the national board to choose what the secretariat should do in the achievement of the action plan that you, the sections, decide. This is also the method that ESN International uses. ESN International has a secretariat as well that is paid, and the international board chooses what the secretariat shall do. So we are basically adopting their. Sorry.
Do you have another question? No. Just one.
I meant more which position in the national board decides.
Oh.
Yeah,
The
sorry.
board, like, I think
Yeah, the board, yeah. The board as a body decides what the secretary should do.
Lynn?
Yeah, Lynn ESMK. I'm just wondering if this would go through what type of time frame do you have? Second question, if you would have full-time employees, is it meant that the national board is the employer, and then you have to read up on, you know, Swedish work laws, and it would also take time? I'm just wondering a bit how you've been thinking about that.
I can't recall the first question, so I'll begin with the second one. Sorry. All right. So the national board would be the employee, and we have already read up every requirement for the organizations to have employees in Sweden, and we have filled out all the applications for. We are fully ready. If you choose to commit to this, we as national board are ready to implement this before our mandate is done. Oh, now I recall your first question. So yeah, sorry. Hopefully we'll have a secretariat already when our mandate is over.
Is it on? No?
Yes.
It's on? Okay. I was just thinking that...
Name and section?
Yeah, Marcus, Eastern Södertörn. For me, it sounds like a fantastic idea because it will bring together the organization in a more structural way. I think it will make everything more structural and make it work more smoothly. But my question is, how many would work in this secretariat? Like, do you have this thing like 1, 2, or 3, or how many would be in the secretariat?
That will be decided annually. If we need to grow the secretariat, we'll have more employees. Next year, we probably will only have 1.
Will change from year to year?
Yes.
Thank you.
Siva?
Hi, Sena Esen Klassenberg. I'm just going to repeat my question. So do you think, like, how to decide the amount of the salary kind of for this new position? And is it like, how do you make sure it's going to be sufficient for this person to, like, you know, is it based on hours of working? How do they prove how much they have worked, like workload, they look at? And also, like, yeah, who is going to be selecting this person as like hiring this person?
The secretariat would be administered by the national board. So the national board sends out the open call to the sections to look for members, but the national board would be the one who chooses who would be in the secretariat. According to our current proposal, then of course if you have other people, please provide them. And regarding the salary, it will depend on the task for that specific secretariat, taking what we envision the next year's secretary to do. We only propose that one next year. That would be a one-time fee when the job is done. So they will get paid when they have applied for the operating grant, and then we have taken into consideration how many hours of work that is, and they will also get an additional fee, or a bonus if they actually manage to get the grant. But yeah, we have taken into consideration the norm of Swedish salaries.
Also, guys, when it's your turn, like, raise your hands so they'll see you can bring you their mic.
Manos, ESL Malmö. I have 2 questions. The first is who this open call is addressed to. Is it ESNers? If it's ESNers, is it ESNers from Sweden or other countries? Is it like past members? And in case if it's like alumni, if it's not ESNers,
it's there.
And I'm gonna take the second also. The second is about the paid positions. So the way I see it is like, allow me to use this word, an investment. You put some money and you expect certain results. In case those results are not satisfied with core result obviously to get the operation grant, will that mean that you lose money from that? Will that mean that it was damaging as an investment?
Beginning with the second question again, because my short-term memory is horrible. So, if the Secretariat doesn't get the operating grant next year, it would be a loss. But that is not the goal. Well, what I'm proposing now is the framework for a Secretariat. So, in the future, it doesn't only apply for the operating grant. What it could do is just relieve the National Board of the administrative work. But yeah, if you look specifically at what we want the next Secretary to do and apply for operating grants, it could be a loss.
And the first.
All right. And the first question, could you repeat it?
The first question was who will open the call, like to a senator from Sweden, alumni.
It's not defined. What France does is they have a call for everyone. They target audience is ESNers, but then again, if we have other experienced volunteers from, I don't know, Isaac or another person who's experienced with grants, then yeah, fine.
Thank you. Dion?
You isn't to put it. Partially covered by Manos about who the call is directed to, and thus I will just suggest to use some of the resources from the network, like Erasmus Intern, the platform. That, like for instance, if you look at ESN International, the international board calls for volunteers and such. So yeah, just suggest looking into that, and I'm happy to talk about it later. Thanks.
ESN Node. I'm actually one of the huge supporters of this idea. I like it very much, and I think it will push our network very much forward. And it's really inspiring to see how ESN France is doing. I just have a little bit more concern about the financial aspect that it's going to be decided solely by the board, or mostly, and then it will be just approved later on by the MP. So maybe we a little bit just the financial side, more of observation from the national platform. But other than that, the administrative stuff, their tasks, I think they should stay with the board.
It's a more comment, so it was not question.
I can answer with one sentence. The current proposal hasn't anything decided on how the financial situation should be. So apart from that, the board pays them. And next year, it's only going to be one mission for the secretary. So the next board can continue to develop this entire project.
I have a procedural, I don't know what the finger is. I have received a complaint that people who are using the mic should speak up, because even with the mics it's hard to hear on the stream.
Okay.
Please speak just a little bit louder.
Okay, thank you. So, before, I would like to propose to close the speaker list. Someone is against? Abstain? Okay, the speaker list is closed after Oscar. So, Noor, main chair. For me, it's like more a comment, because an external perspective. So, as Marcus said, many ESN countries are now developing like a national secretariat, and this is also in the action plan of the international board. So this is like the aim for the most stable country to be able to develop a secretariat. All the questions that you asked to Marcus are very relevant, but also be aware that a secretariat is more. You are more deciding on the possibility to have one than exactly like which position you will have, in which way you will pay them, because it's something that it's very flexible and that can change. For example, now in Italy we just started our own secretariat and we opened the position, and also we started with some EBS or like trainers, so like some positions that are also unpaid, for example. And like you can also in the international level, in the secretariat, they have some position like EBS, like some positions that are unpaid. So there are many solutions, and also the position change according to the needs of the country. So maybe you lack communication skills, and you can look for a communication manager, like something like that. So don't stick too much, like this is something that you will decide together with the board according to the needs of your country. But like as an external comment, I think this is something that can help a country a lot to develop, because the work of the national board is difficult to describe, and sometimes it takes time, like from the real mission that is develop like the country and follow the action plan, and it's a lot of bureaucracy, like sometimes, or administration and stuff. Jonathan.
Jonathan, ESN Nala. Perhaps this is a question then that you could answer. Apologies, Marcus, because I think what you've actually just kind of essentially answered my question, but I'll come up phrase it back to you anyway. Is this how you see the future of ESN? The more globalized society that we live in today, do you see that in order to kind of keep on top of volunteers and kind of keeping people more connected in today's society, in order to grow the organization, that more paid positions will become available outside the secretariat position in order to grow the network? So to offer a paid position, or various copious amounts, I should say, of paid positions. Okay. Yeah, I think you get the idea. So that's, I was just curious to know, that's the future. I think if both maybe want to answer, or regardless, I'm not really sure. Thank you.
We have a national president's meeting frequently, and the ongoing topic is, should we implement secretariats in the national level, or should we hire the entire national board? So it's something that we are going towards. We already see more and more full employees in ESN, so I think it's the future.
For me, it's a bit about the professionalization of the network in a way, but we have to pay attention on the meaning that we give to this word. For example, for my experience in my country, it's I think that for ESN Italy now it works better to have a secretariat than like a paid national board, but that you need people that dedicate themselves like 24/7 to the organization in order to develop it. And it doesn't mean that you have like also the IB is paid, but is not, they are not employee, like they are volunteer based, so like it's just a small amount of money to allow them to dedicate their life for a couple of years to ESN. So I think that we need some specific knowledge that you can struggle to find among volunteers. For example, grant is something that in my country is something that we really need to develop, and it's mandatory in order to develop ESN Italy for the level that we have reached, and is the knowledge that you struggle to find among volunteers. So like we need someone that do that as a professional in order to support ESN Italy growing and support the sections. So yes, I see this is a future, but we have also to pay attention on the meaning that we give to the word professionalization and paid position. I hope it was clear. And Oscar.
I'm covered. Oscar is in Sweden. I'm covered by Norway.
Okay, let's check. Okay. We are a bit late still. According to the agenda, we will finish around 7. If you want, like, if you really feel that you need that, like, we can have 5 minutes break.
Please.
Okay. But like 5 minutes, like I know that it's like a short time, but it's in order to avoid any kind of like I don't want to cut the question round for the candidates and for the proposition. So 5 minutes break, and we'll come back to the plenary.
For 5 minutes? No, let's take it for a proper coffee break.
Can you get out, or do I need to move my computer?
Then your master is
He said like some kind of mistake. I don't know what happened. Like confusing. I was about to say like. I saw his story, like if you take, like especially if you take I think like yeah, especially when he like he posted immediately, I can see on the like conversation, yeah, like Mikko posts a story.
You survived.
Yes, yeah, I know.
I'll tell you this. It's not okay.
It's definitely not okay. Otherwise, like, we should.
I mean, maybe it's maybe it's actually was like an accident.
Yeah, but it's nice. Yeah. Oh yes, exactly. You see, like for example, if I screenshot and I want to send it to, and then because also I remember like somehow if yeah, you see I can add it to my story or like send it to someone to
Maybe right there, maybe it happens through
forward message.
Yeah, through forward message. Yeah. But maybe he didn't know.
I have 84 because I'm still like without
But how do you know? How do you know if you like?
because you see the
Yeah, but how do you know when?
it's like they're both. It's like, do you prefer a Mercedes or a Dodge? Like not
still like they're like, yeah, can we have a meeting with the board today before 2? I'm like, what? No. Yeah, like Marcus there, like my time travel wants a meeting. He's like, no. I'm being honest to you. I think like during before I get in my I start to get like depressed. I have like I'm depressed, I'm tired, I'm stressed. But stress is much lower than my depressed. So I'm not feeling depressed.
That's why you have the computer.
Settle the ones that they have as a demonstrator, and they make these really good because usually people don't want to buy those because they're afraid that like issues are broken. But then they have like not now 40% reduction. So I was thinking because I also like filming pieces. I don't want to sell them when I have
People left and then just come in during because I was like,
this one is filming this one.
I was gonna say something, but like this one.
You really want the really advanced time rather than there's always
it's mostly
I just realized I thought life was like now in 10 minutes.
for the kind of utility I give to pictures. Phone nowadays.
No, it's like
all you need. I mean,
it comes close, but not close.
like these two things. I mean,
they are
five.
in
We don't end till like 9 or 7 sometimes.
It's good, especially because you can imagine. You have on I have like the
It would be like one thing if we need.
So you use it with your phone, all of our free time.
But now we get control of there.
So but they don't come close.
Ah,
It's very
yeah, of course.
For me, it feels like more like a pretty thing. Like, oh, I can mix.
Yeah, but do you know about change? Like, I don't know.
I can't do this. Like, I have to fix the document. They have to send it.
Some a bit of us.
So you think I can learn?
But I can do it from here.
Anyone can.
I can learn. No, you can.
Okay, cool.
So they.
It's like I'm really bad like circulation, so when it's cold, it just like my fingers get like stiff. I should.
So like 1 minute.
Is the time counted for each period or there isn't any?
You have them with you?
Yeah, but I was like,
I was like, I lost a few years ago, but now I'm still.
she doesn't have to be online. She can just check.
No, come on.
Yeah, but this is just, yeah, that's what I said as well. Like, I just said, like,
With us when we open the box.
I just said, I just actually wrote that I forward the message to that we can have a lunch open and
But the radio is the most important for her to do this herself.
Yeah, exactly. And on that, I said, okay, I don't know, please write to Ariana. She's
You were kidding. I mean, like, wait, can you
Yeah,
I don't want to
I
touch.
wrote her an email, she hasn't replied. And the email I explained that I got her
Yeah, remember she was in another session, so she said, right now?
Yeah, it's not for us. If we don't have it.
I hope something.
I just want because she answered an hour ago. Thank you.
Alright, but we still have lunch, so after lunch I'll look something. Is this for me?
And we would do a good job, but then you have to give them and hand over in like basic yes and her.
I did find our workshop in the entire but with yeah, no, it's something that you and find someone och den där hur långt det was not really grasping so det var typ minimum 600
I'm trying to like jump because I really jump. Why can't I jump? I'm awake. Okay, so we will start again. Mary, come to the stage, like you're already here.
We're sitting here.
The presentation about the merchandising. Okay, so about the merchandising, we don't have the question round. It never was. It was never in the agenda. So after the presentation, there is no time for question round, but you can approach Mary during the lunch.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to keep it really short. Okay, so as you might know, we have a new merchandise and we have a web shop. The merch is here, so you can actually see it live, and some of us are wearing the hoodies as well. We don't sell the hoodies now, but you can order it in the web shop. Yeah. So, well, this is our classic hoodie. I'm just going to explain you why we chose to put the things that are on a hoodie, maybe so it can give you some ideas for your merchandise. So,
We have ESN Sweden on top. This is an internal term. We use like abbreviations like ESN, AGM, NP, MB, NC, mostly for internal audience. So that's what this hoodie is also mostly for our volunteers. We use ESN Star to connect us to the network, and because we feel unified to it. And we have the Moose Visual. This is no logo. This is it used to be used as a logo based in Sweden. We have it here also on our flag. But as we want to strive more towards a unified branding, without kind of losing our identity as well, we kind of cut off the moose and put it as just a visual element on our hoodies. And we have our slogan, making your life sweeter, or make your life sweeter, both. And the date of establishment and the full name of the network, which is also more for external audience, but yeah. Okay, this is our Fika and Lagom series. We created to spread the Swedish culture and target students as well as ESNers. So we can, both students and ESNers can buy it. It's a great memory to bring back home. Everyone knows what Fika is, and these are students, and then they, and Lago might be less popular, but still, it gives like a feeling of what Swedish life is about, which is kind of nice to have as a memory back home. And we're trying to also spread a slogan. We use it also in our social media campaigns as well as on the merch, so it spreads a bit more to a bigger audience. And keeping the ESN branding, the star, and Italians approve it.
Exactly. We have also our own version.
That's true. You can ask them about it during the lunch break. So these are the models. You can see here. We tried the different colors. We wanted to do the full colored one to start, but it's very difficult to print. Very expensive to print because it has many shades in the stars, which costs more money, and that's why we chose to have just one color, a single color, the monochrome ones. And of course we have a new merch. We have beanies because it fits the Swedish weather, and we have kanelbullar socks. Yes. Well, these are the order details. Well, if you order before the 31st of March, you will receive the merch on the 29th of April. This is not set by us. This is set by the retailer. So they collect the orders and then they send it out. This is easier for us to do because then we don't have to buy it in, because we always need to have like a big bulk of money being available and buy all these merch in. Then we have to individually send these merchandise out. This also costs money. So now we have someone to do it for us. And you get a free of charge delivery if you exceed the 200 euros. And you get 5% discount if you exceed 500 euros if you're really, really big fan of this merch. So that was my presentation. You can approach Alice and Oscar if you want to buy some. And yeah, that's it. Hope you here.
Thank you very much, Mary. So now I would like to invite Marcus on stage for his presentation about ESN and the European Parliament elections. Guys, do you want me to...
Yes, please.
Don't sleep, huh? I also have a dress code. Okay?
It's Captain Europe.
He looks like a wizard.
Captain Europe.
You're a wizard.
Marcus, you have 10 minutes.
Captain Europe.
All right. Now, as our beloved international president mentioned in his call, we will have the elections to members of the European Parliament the 23rd to 26th of May, and this will concern us. So I want you to begin with take a minute to reflect on why you are here and what the European Union has given you as a human being. So, 1 minute. So, any conclusions? Does anyone want to share their thoughts? Manos?
Do I need my...
No, I need this.
Manos is in Malmö, so, well, as an international student in Sweden, I cannot, I have to mention the fact that I'm here. Thanks to the EU. I'm a Greek citizen. I'm in Sweden, and that I owe to the fact that within European Union you can move free in all the EU member states for work or studies. So that's a big accomplishment. Thank you, EU ambassador.
Thank you, EU citizen. Right. So, moving on, the entire core of our organization rotates around the Erasmus Plus program, which is of course funded by the European Union. I wanted to really take into consideration that ESN was also originated from the EU and the Erasmus Plus program, and take into consideration how our part as volunteers in ESN and how we really need to be engaged with the elections that is coming, to be an active citizen. This needs, of course, that you need to choose yourself. We wanted to encourage your local section to vote. We want to encourage your local international students to vote, and we need you to encourage your entire friends to vote for the European elections. ESN is doing an amazing job on taking several actions to truly engage our network with workshops, training events. We'll have active citizenship as a workshop later today, which is a workshop developed by ICE. We'll jump into what is the European Parliament. So take your time.
You already voted in the local and national elections, so why go through the whole thing again on a European scale? There are, of course, many reasons to vote in elections, ranging from specific political goals to generally getting the good and not corrupt people in the right places. But then what? What can an MEP actually do? Do the results of the European elections really have influence on our daily lives? Well, you probably have an opinion about the laws the EU has made. Everyone has heard of the laws dictating the shape of bananas, and everyone is enjoying the law forcing companies to provide free roaming within the EU. Well, in case of almost all these laws, it is Parliament who has to agree with them. Without the Parliament's approval, they don't pass. So, whether you are against or for certain EU laws, Parliament is a good place to voice your opinion. Secondly, you probably also have an opinion about the cost and budget of the EU. Is it way too expensive, or is it ineffective with its current limited budget? And is it spending it on the right things? Whatever your opinion, Parliament again is a good place to start, since each year it must also sign off on the budget. While again not the only party in the discussion, because of their veto, they do have a big say in how much the EU can spend and on what. Thirdly, you might think the bureaucrats at the top of the EU, like the President of the Commission and his commissioners, are doing a fantastic job. Or you might have some objections to their approach. It so happens that Parliament has to approve all new commissioners and its president. If Parliament doesn't, they don't become commissioner. Moreover, they can dismiss the Commission if they change their mind later on. So having MEPs in Parliament that share your opinion on how to lead the bureaucracy of the EU can go a long way. Lastly, since 2014 the European Parliament uses Spitzenkandidaten. In short, the leader of the largest party in the European Parliament will probably become the President of the Commission. So voting in European elections directly influences who becomes top bureaucrat. This leads us nicely to what we are voting for. There are a number of layers to be aware of. Just like in national elections, you can vote for a political party or a candidate member of parliament. So, just like with the national elections, you should see if you agree with the candidates and parties' opinions, or at least on those subjects most important to you. However, unlike in national elections, the EP has European political groups. At the moment, we are still using national instead of European lists, which means you can only vote for MEPs and parties from your own country. Then, each country sends a certain number of elected MEPs to Brussels. Interestingly enough, currently a number of new parties are trying to circumvent this rule by participating in elections in multiple countries at the same time. So in a way, you can already vote for pan-European parties this time. Anyway, due to the national list system, there are a huge number of political parties in Parliament. To streamline Parliament a bit, yes, the EU tries to be more efficient sometimes, the national parties come together in European groups along ideological lines. So if you vote for the Green Party in your own country, this indirectly gives the Greens from other countries more power as well. Might be nice, but doesn't have to be. So be sure to check which other MEPs and parties are part of the group you are indirectly voting for. Lastly, there's the Spitzenkandidat. Like mentioned before, the leader of the largest European group will probably become the President of the Commission and lead the Eurocrats for the next 5 years. So be sure to check which Spitzenkandidat is attached to your favorite MEP and national party through its European group. If you have a strong opinion about someone becoming the next President of the Commission, this could influence your vote. Regardless of your opinion, voting and participating in a debate is important, but making up your mind can be difficult, even more so with the complications of the EU that we tend to know so little of. So we hope this video helps a bit. In addition, we'll put some websites in the description that might be helpful when trying to make up your mind. If you want more information on the European Parliament, the Commission, their
Alright, so basically it's an institution that represents the citizens of the member states. They have elections every 5 years, so it's quite rare or frequent. Their job is to adopt the laws together with the council. They have the last word to many of the budget items and questions, and they supervise the European Commission. So all in all, a lot of the decisions taken by the EU needs to go through the European Parliament, and this is where your opportunity to shape the future of the European Union comes in. Why do we want to address this as ESN? Well, as you know, ESN is a politically unbiased organization, but that's not what I'm saying, or what I'm trying to, we only want our volunteers to express their opinions, so they are represented in the European bodies. We only want our Erasmus students to express their opinions, so they are represented in the European Union bodies. And also we only want everyone around them to express their opinions, so they are represented in the European Union bodies. It basically comes down to being an active citizen. And this is also a great opportunity for your local section to engage more with your international relations office. Create a conference, invite your local IRO. I am sure they will be thrilled to see that you are engaging the students at your university to be an active citizen. And this only comes once every 5 years. Really take this opportunity to engage the entire student group that you represent, and friends and family. How can you promote elections? There's a campaign going, it's called This Time I'm Voting. Go to their webpage, register, and you will receive a bunch of campaign materials which you can disseminate out to your students and friends and family. How do I vote? It's perhaps not super clear. This is how to vote at the EU is a webpage that helps you figure out how to vote. You basically say, I am German, I live in Spain, and then the rest is up to the web page to give you instructions. Are you unsure on which political party does align with your personal opinions? You can go to yourvotematters.eu and you will receive, I think it's 25 or something questions, different subjects, which helps you figure out which party represents you. And I think that's all I had. We really need you to vote, and we really need you to engage your students, the students that you represent, to vote, and also your friends and family. It's so important for us as the Erasmus generation to shape the future we want of EU. So take this opportunity. It comes once every 5 years. Be an active citizen. Save the date, and feel free to come up to me or anyone else during the coffee break. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the speaker list is open. Guillaume.
So this is going.
Hello. Guillaume is from Göteborg. I have a small comment for everyone. Also, why I think it's important to have this presentation right now. Do not postpone that. I know it's in a bit of a while, but there will be some. A lot of us are concerned by administrative stuff because most of us live in another country that is not the country where we're going to vote, likely. Same for the students. Most of the exchange students will have to do some administrative stuff, go to the local embassy and stuff like that. So it's like, as a French, I can tell you, deal with administration as soon as you can. So yeah, just small comment about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone else? Daughter?
Jonathan, yes, and Mel. Just out of curiosity, actually a question maybe from Mary. Is there a post we have maybe in consideration we're thinking of having that all sections could post to use as a kind of a campaign material for ESN to get people to get their vote? Is that something we have an idea upon or something that you'd like to work on? Okay.
Yes, we have. It's we posted recently on our Facebook, and we tried to do a nomination campaign at the challenge in the internal group. I think you've also been nominated as ESN Mama.
Well, clearly we're the best section. That's the tendency, you know.
But there's information. I printed in our internal group. It's at the top post. It has like a link that you can share, and also the esn.org has votes. There's a lot of information there you can share with your audience.
I think to save time, I think we'll maybe have we talk about it after. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mary.
Freya is in Gothenburg. It's not a question, it's just a short comment. There is a link for ESN, since ESN has a like kind of not a partnership with This Time I'm Voting. If you go to this, if you go to thistimeimvoting.eu, then you will just see the normal website. But if you go to thistimeimvoting.eu/ESN, you will also see the normal website. But if you register that, then it's like for ESN.
Ellen? And I propose to close the speaker list. Someone want to be added? Someone against? Abstain? Okay, the speaker list is closed.
Ellen, yes, in back row. I also don't want to ask a question, but just give a short statement. There are also there's one event that was created by the European Commission and the European Union with this time I'm voting, which was a long time ago. that it was created, and there's one ESN related one as well, so you can also invite your members or share this as well on Facebook. And just in general, I mean, of course, we are not supposed to give our opinion about you should vote for this party or for this direction, or we want to get this through in the EU elections. But generally, as an organization that is based on Erasmus+, which is a project that is funded by the European Commission, this is the core of what we are doing, why we exist, and why it is so important that we encourage the students who are allowed to vote because they are EU citizens to actually speak up and be an active citizen. And I shared the post, I shared the comments in the group, so you can find everything there.
So Noor Mincha, just an external input. I don't know, of course, how the situation is exactly in your sections, but something that was really helpful for our section is to involve their own university, and they propose them like some conferences or like some small talk or small debate about active citizenship and the importance to vote to these elections. So a lot of institutions that are connected to the daily work that you're doing in your local section are really interested to promote European elections. So this could be also for you a nice opportunity to get in touch with your municipality or to straighten a bit the relationship with the university. So take it into consideration. And don't sleep in the plenary room. I can see you.
Dana, ESN Sweden. I also just want to make a point for anyone who wants to share this information in Swedish. There's also a website. You can change the language, and it literally changes the whole thing to a Swedish focus online, denhargången.eu. And there's a part on there where you have all the information already translated into Swedish, as well as with the events across Sweden that are sponsored by this. There's already events that are being run by the EU in different cities all across Sweden. So
what is the website again?
Denhargången röstar jag. Sverige. Yeah. I can copy it to you. Yeah. But it's already available in Swedish.
Alice, part of Jamaica. Just a short comment as a non-EU citizen. How I feel as like a bit left over every time during this European election, and also like this whole campaign thing. And I think it would be nice to have more like information shared, maybe through ESN, maybe especially ESN is also including some international students from like outside the EU, like China, other part of Asia, and America and stuff and such.
It's an invitation to promote maybe the concept of active citizenship among international students.
There are web pages which will help you figure out whether or not you can have an input in the EU elections. I can give you somehow share the link after.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you want to have some because it's your time again. So now we have the proposition presentation. No, that's afterwards. So proposition presentation. So we have two propositions from the board, and we have an amendment from Taha about one of the propositions, I suppose. So, like Marcos, you have maximum 5 minutes for each proposition, and then Taha can come to the stage and present his amendments, and then we have the question round. Okay?
Could we begin with the secretariat?
I will have to respond for you.
Okay, this is one of the propositions we present at the National Board. Proposition is once again changes to our statutes and standing orders. This proposition is about the Secretariat and how we will implement it to our statutes. So we can scroll down a bit. So everything that you see that is green has been added. Red are will be removed. Of course, in our statutes we include the Secretariat as one of the bodies of ESN Sweden. Scroll down. Once again, in our statutes mentioning the Secretariat as a entity that is allowed to be present at our annual meetings. And then we leave our statutes completely and jump over to standing orders. And a new paragraph, standing orders for the Secretariat. So 1.1, the composition of the Secretariat is a matter of the board, and the Secretariat is accountable to the board. So this is the current proposal that we have, meaning that the board is administrating the Secretariat, both when it comes to salary and the tasks and employee times, whatever. 1.2, the board can mandate a member of the Secretariat, and going into the underlines, to lead the Secretariat and thus the staff, meaning the board has the privilege to lead the Secretariat. 1.2.2, to assist the board in the day-to-day financial affairs of the organizations, to represent the organization to third parties. So it's more just how the board should administer the Secretariat. Title number 2, competences of the Secretariat. And the Secretariat shall assist the board in the execution of the decisions taken by the board. Scroll down. It shall assist the board in the execution of the action plan and the implementation of the strategy voted by the AGM. So basically, whatever you want us to do, we'll ask the Secretariat to help us accomplish that. 2.2, all members of the Secretariat have the right to attend board meetings when invited by the board. Nothing special. And then we just change titles just to spoof the remaining paragraphs. That's the Secretariat proposition.
You are taking the other one, no?
And the other proposition is about just general amendments and fixes to our statutes and standing orders. So first, the membership fee is decided at the full national platform. We have already voted on this during the last MP, because the membership fee is mentioned in two paragraphs in our statutes, and we changed one of them but not the other, which was a miss. 5.4, along with so when a motion is received to us, that is statutes and changing order proposed by you, our members, when the board receives one, currently our statute says that we need to respond to that motion. And we received some motions this time, and we didn't want to respond, but our statute says that we need to respond. So we basically sent out a response. Hey, we received your motion, and we see this as a sufficient response. So we want to remove this because this is just too micromanaging. 5.8.1. As you know, we have the annual meeting right now, and it's not in before the last of February, it's in March. And it's quite weird to have our statutes, so it's not a support to our work, it's just an obstacle. So it's, yeah, continue. 7.6, the board should meet at least twice a month instead of must. Once again, it's micromanaging how we should work during the summers, for example. There are other things to focus on, like having a break. And then going to standing orders. Here's a conflict between the statutes and standing orders. At least we in the board interpret it as a conflict, whereas Taha's amendment later will suggest otherwise. But what we say as a board, that the red was the old writing. A section can delegate its voting right to another section by sending an email to the local representative mailing list at latest 1 week before the scheduled meeting. So you can delegate your vote by sending an email to the local representative list. And what we want to have instead is by sending a written note to the board only. because that is what our statutes says this green currently, and we want our standing orders to say the same thing as our statutes. Going on. Name change, ESNC Battle Coordinator. That's a board position, one of the 7 board positions. So it's just confusing to have the name or title coordinator on the position. So we propose to change it to National Event Manager, since Sea Battle is our national event. Yeah, that's all I think.
Thank you very much. Can you come?
Yeah. You can stay here and just scroll up a bit. Do you want have a presentation?
Which one here? It's
You didn't send them a note?
Yeah. But there's no need, like, I mean, there's lots of talk.
Is
so
it the MP? Do you understand from the MP's presentation?
No, it's like the amendment to the proposal.
No, I mean, you can leave it to the last one Marcus was explaining and go just up a bit.
About the standing, the what
Yeah, here. So, I sent an amendment a while, just a couple of days before the MP, about this specific paragraph. When I read the statutes and standing orders, I believe there is no actual conflict or contradiction between the statutes and standing orders. The statute says that a written notice should be sent to the national board. The standing order says that you can send the delegated vote by an email to the local representative mailing list. And since the national board receives all the emails that go to the local representative mailing list, that means that they receive a written notice with the vote delegation. So there's no actual contradiction there. The second reason I gave this amendment, so the amendment simply just remove of this part. So there we will keep the original text, the red text. Yeah, and the second reason is that it's more suitable for ESN Sweden to have a more flexible delegation for the vote. I explained in details in the documents that was sent that it's better because sections interaction varies throughout the years. Some years some sections are very interactive. Other years they are much less interactive, and it's better to have it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I make one additional comment on TAS?
We fully agree with Taha in the sense that it's not contradictory, but instead it's sending double messages. We are having a discussion right now about our statutes that could very well happen again in the future. And I mean, our statutes should be a supportive document, and right now we are having discussions on how to interpret the document. So we would just like to remove this. They are not they're not saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
With the question round, so to have an order like in what we are talking about. So first we will discuss about amendment, the proposal about the secretariat. Then we will discuss about the second proposal. Okay, so like someone has some question about the first proposal about the secretariat. No. Jonathan.
Oh my God. John, yes, and Malmo. So I was just curious to see in B1.2 that you changed ESNC Battle Coordinator to National Event Manager. I personally, now this is me, it's an inner conflict I have. I don't see the necessity in changing such a name when I know it's the main national event, huh?
Okay, but
I can't make a point on that at all? No?
No, but we were discussing about the first part. So
on only the second point?
Secretariat.
Yeah.
Now we are discussing about the secretariat.
Yeah.
No question about the secretariat.
No.
Then we're discussing about the second one. Who has question about the proposal, like show with all the points? So Jonathan, then you can keep going. But someone else, Ellen?
This one actually have a point on the secretariat. I thought it was not on the first
And why
place.
we're talking about the national event coordinator.
So I'm so confused here. Okay, comes to the past, like.
No.
When it comes
sorry.
to me,
like
no.
your question was about the first proposal.
No.
Okay.
Because I thought it was no one put their hand up, so we went to the next part.
Okay, perfect. It was not clear for me. But
It wasn't clear for me either.
Now it's clear for everyone.
Communication breakdown.
So like just say like I just want to but the Jonathan and then David, okay, and like please do your question and this is about the second poll.
Okay, so Jonathan, ESN Malmo. So the question was in terms of national. Do you mind going back to that point, please, on B 1.2? Yeah, 1.2. Yeah, so ESN CBAO coordinator. I understand the point that you made that it is our national, it is ESN Sweden's national event. But in terms of other national events that are actually held by the person who does this, I don't feel as if it's a necessity to call them a national event manager when in reality they are essentially only doing ESN C battle while not actually holding our national events. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that the national board do hold national events.
Okay.
Is that okay?
We have a reaction from, like not a reaction, but because we are talking about his position, like you're allowed to.
Of course.
Surprisingly, I did not suggest this, but I do support this. It has two reasons, or for me personally, and what we have written there, you can read it.
Yeah.
But it's one that a national board position, it reflects much better to our partners, and also, you know, when I'm in contact with companies and whatnot, that it says national event manager or something similar, rather than CBATO coordinator, which is the event and then a coordinator. It doesn't reflect the same message when it comes to businesses and whatnot. And second, as you say there, it's no longer a coordinator. The name stuck through from being a coordinator position, a national coordinator position, to a national board position. Therefore, we need to change the name as well, I believe, to reflect the change more better. We have some comments all over the place.
Yeah, it's like it's comments everywhere. It comes back to that then. But do you feel as if it's fair to say then that more national events should be held by the person who is in holding of this position, rather than just appear good for outside third parties?
Wait, sorry. I didn't understand that question. Can you repeat it?
Sorry, I'm Irish. I'll try that again. So, in terms, I understand that what Yara said in terms of wanting to have more appeal of the name of the role, but for me personally, if you're going to have that name changed to National Event Manager, then there should be more events held on a national level for the person outside of C battle.
Okay, because you made a question before.
But it's a comment.
It was a comment back to the
Okay,
comment that I
perfect.
made. I just don't feel as if the position should be.
Okay.
I think it's a question of semantics. Events versus event.
Yes.
National event.
Plural versus singular.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it's clear. If someone like we don't have reaction like from other people. So if you want to be added to the speaker list, like you raise your hand and you.
Yeah. Who wants to be added? Because I'm so many.
Ellen, in the meantime.
Ellen, yes, and d'accord. I also agree that the general thing, having it as a renaming, makes sense. Nevertheless, naming it as national event, does that imply that for the future there might be a switch from CBAT to another national event, or is it just to have more the official ESN term so that outsiders who are not from Sweden also understand it?
I guess I'll comment to that. There's absolutely nothing right now that suggests that we will have any change when it comes to the structure of the event sea battle or anything like this. This is just to be more in line with, as you say, people that are not familiar with the actual sea battle.
Okay. It's like
thing.
wording.
It's just a wording thing. Yeah.
David? Raise your hand.
David from ESN Denmark. I just had a small question about a little correction you do for the date of the annual general meeting. Why do you actually put time restrictions in it at all? Just to maybe compare it to the ESN Denmark, ours just says that the elections has to take place before the annual general meeting of ESN, which is more generic.
You raised the answer yourself. The annual general meeting of ESN International is not so far away from the annual meeting of ESN Sweden, so we moved it forward in time, but didn't want to get all too close to AGM.
It's like AGM is for selling.
Manos is in Malmö. With regard to the sea battle coordinator change, I believe it's a fair change. I can testify my experience as a former ESNer in Greece. In Greece we also have a national event called the Crete Trip, and the person responsible for that is not called the Crete Trip coordinator, it's called national event manager. So it applies with other national networks. It's a question with regards to Marcus. With regards to the written notice thing, I guess as a written notice you are referring to a mail. Do you mean that this mail should be sent directly to the ESN Sweden mail without being released to the LR mail list?
What we want to achieve is removing any confusions between the statutes and our standing orders. And currently our statutes says that the board should receive the email. Changing our statutes requires 2 annual meetings. Changing our standing orders require 1. And national platform. So we wanted to fix this as soon as possible, and the easiest way was just to change our standing orders.
Yeah, Sanak from SNBDH. I have a very small question. If I remember correctly, in the past, we have called some scanball trips as national trips or national events. I'm just asking for a clarification.
The Gotland trip, for example, it's a national trip. Yeah, and national event is a completely other thing.
Okay.
Matt? You are like
I agree with the professionality aspect of changing the name to National Event Manager. It definitely sounds better when we are in contact with other organisations rather than having the specific branding of CFL. But is it also kind of over-glorifying a position that is very specific to one event? If the National Event Manager or the CFL Coordinator is not actually contributing or creating other events.
Is it
But I think it's glorifying.
Over-glorifying, yeah.
I think that it was already clear by your previous answer that this is just a rewording of the name, not a change of the position. So, like, the position will have the same duties that has right now, it's just a name of, it's like a change of the name.
Yeah.
This was already answered.
Yeah, so I think I was sharing kind of Jonathan's concerns that we are making the position seem like it is more than it actually is by the name change.
Okay. It's very good. Okay.
Norm in charge, so like just a comment on the part about the voting delegation by the sections. So I had the honor to go through your documents very like in a very precise way in order to be able to manage this plenary in the proper way. And I have a lot of experience with legal documents, unfortunately, because of PSN review. And my experience in my national board. And what I think it should be clear is that the statute has the it's like has the supremacy over the standing orders. So if there is a inconsistency between the two documents, the statute as the one that's to be respected. So like if in the statute you say A and in the standing orders you say B about the same thing, the statute is the correct one that you have to follow. So when the problem about the inconsistency that also was a problem for us as a steering team about the vote delegation is that the fact that the board is in the LR mailing list, it's not enough. Like if in the statute it's written that you have to send a written notice that can be an email, like a post office, whatever, that this is on the steering team or on the board to decide or on like the organization to decide. But if in the statute it's written that you have to send a written notice to the board, you have to add the board account, like the board email, whatever, but it's not enough to have the board, the fact that you know that the board is reading the mailing list that you are sending delegation through. So to respect the statute and to have like the vote delegation valid, you have to add the board email. Then it doesn't mean that you also add just like for copy, like in copy, also all the mailing lists that you want. But the fact that in the statute it's written that you have to add the board, like that you have to send a written letter to the board, it means that you always have to send like an email to the board. And for me, like external perspective, with without not being humble, but like strong experience in documents in ESN, it was very confusing. And you have a lot of inconsistencies between your documents. So like I see the point of the board to change that, because for us as well it was very confusing. And if when we sent our email saying that the vote delegation should have sent to the board, we decided to add also the LR mailing list, just like to be 100%, like to respect 100% your documents, but it was not needed, because as long as your statute states that, like the statute has the power over the standing orders. External audit. And I also propose to close the speaker list. Against, abstain. Okay, this after that the speaker list is closed, and we have Jonathan now.
And after the speaker list has closed, is it possible to make a proposition as well?
I have to go through your documents and I have an answer. I have to recheck the deadlines, like what you have to do. I think we have to, like if you want to make a proposition on this, like now, we have to vote on that, like to accept it.
Should I make the proposition
Is it
right
an
now?
amendment to something?
It's an amendment.
It's an amendment to the schedule. An amendment to the, I don't know. There's a change to the schedule.
Okay, procedural vote.
What do you like? Tell us what you want.
So I'll just say what it is. So I would like to propose a closed discussion round for the candidates.
Ah, so this is like out of topic.
Out of topic, completely.
Okay, we will discuss it after the question round. It's closed. Because this is out of topic and this is a procedural question.
Essentially.
Perfect. After, but like about the candidates.
A closed discussion round, yes.
About the candidates for the national board.
Yes.
Okay. We will. I have an answer for that, but we will wait for the speaker list to be closed. Okay.
That's fine.
Finish
That's
this
why
topic.
I said so. Yeah. Okay. So actually, I do have a question though.
Okay.
Me being me. Would you mind opening up just the documents again, please?
I do mind. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm sure you do mind. I'm very annoying.
Which one do you want?
Would you mind going up to the secretariat? Secretariat part, please.
This is not it. One moment. Sorry.
Yeah. Keep going. Sorry, keep going. My apologies. Yes. So it talks about, and maybe perhaps it's just the vagueness of it. You talk about the board and the secretariat. Now, is it fair to say that when you mentioned the board, it's obviously the national board, but if the secretariat were to be a position that would be brought in to ESN Sweden, could the secretariat be used by local boards as well?
It will be administered by the board of ESN Sweden, the current proposal. That doesn't mean that you don't have any input, perhaps not directly in the current proposal, but indirectly through our action plan. So if you want to have more input into the work of the Secretariat, there is always, we are entering new uncharted waters. For the next VMP or MP, we can propose methods for the sections to have a direct say in what the work of the Secretariat should be.
Because it did say in the statutes here that it's proposed that they would financially help ESN Sweden as well. So, because I know currently at this moment in time there is no one for putting themselves out there for treasurer. So I just put a proposal, and a lot of local boards have an issue where they try to get a treasurer. So, in short, could the secretary be used as a financial help for local sections?
Yes.
Thank you.
It's a super general framework right now, so yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Marcus.
Ariana, Vice Chair. This feels good to say. I have a couple of things I wanted to mention because you already mentioned some, but in regards to the vote allocation issue. First, we were like, oh, is it a contradiction? Is it a consistency? They're synonyms. It's the same thing. The statutes and the standing orders are describing two different processes to vote to delegate your votes. And I feel like now you identified an issue and you're trying to correct it only by changing the standing orders, and that's not going to fix it. Because if you change it by sending the notice just to the board to stay the same as it is in the statutes, how do other sections will know whose votes they have as an MP, and how do they make sure that they don't have more than one delegated vote? What is the process then? The board receives the vote delegations, and will they contact the sections to inform they have a delegated vote? So I would suggest that you amend both, that you find a good process to fix the vote delegation process and amend both the statutes and the standing orders, instead of just doing a quick fix and not fixing the whole problem.
Thank you, Ariana. Ellen?
Ellen, yes, and Dakar. Thanks, Ariana, for pointing that out. I mean, of course, we can discuss this now in like a lot of details, but as you already pointed out, there's like no possibility to now say, okay, we don't accept the change in the standing orders because it's still written in the statutes, the point about where the vote delegation has to be sent to. I also agree that it should be sent to DLR because we got vote delegations before and we didn't know about it. It's like we need to know, the CT needs to know, and so on. So I think it's good to have DLR mandatorily included there as well. But I mean, we will have a virtual national platform upcoming soon. I don't know how the procedure would be with this proposal because it's not the only change mentioned in there. But yeah, if there are other sections, other people who feel like that this should be something to change, please contact me and then we can make our own proposal, amendment, motion, whatever.
Thank you, Alan. David?
I forgot what I wanted to say.
Okay, better. You forgot?
Yeah, it's been too long.
Okay. So the speaker list is closed. Thank you, Tal. Thank you, Marcus. So, about, where is Jonathan? Okay, so since Jonathan disappeared, we will go to the next point and then we will discuss his proposal. So I would invite, oh my gosh, sorry. Also we have the motion presentation, so Ta again to the stage and Liam. So we have one motion from Liam and 3 from Ta, right? You have, like, if you can try to stick in the 3 minutes for motion, I would be very happy. Thank you.
Oh, that's me, okay.
You can use the pointer.
I can use the pointer. Can I use the pointer? Yes. Hi, well, okay. I see everybody is very happy about statute changes and very active, so I hope you will continue being like that. I want to propose motions about the election committees, changes on the statutes about the election committee, which I was part of until very recently. If you don't know what this election committee is about, stick around, then you will understand as I explain that. First of all, it says in our statutes that the election committee shall consist at least of 3 members, and we are currently breaking the statutes because it used to be 2 members and then now only 1 member. So I would like to remove that limitation so that gives us a bit more freedom and make sure also we were like respecting those statutes along the way. Same thing about the requirement from members being from different member sections, because it's been the case this year. It wasn't the case last year when all members were from Malmö. So yeah, change that to make sure we keep respecting those statutes. Keeping that point 2, mandates less from AGM to AGM. Now what is the election committee about? That resumes here. The goal of the election committee is to handle all applications for national board, national coordinators, so that it doesn't fall into the hands of the national boards, and it's a fair process. We cannot say that applications have been tampered with, etc. So yeah, that's the purpose of the election committee. I would also add to that the election committee should hold those duties also outside of the national platforms, were it only to make the work of the national board a bit easier. Like, it's not so bad if during a VNP the board is in charge of that, but it's still better if the election committee does it and also allows the election committee to take that workload off the board. So that's the second point here. And final point also related to what happened very recently, make sure that the standards of transparency provided by the EC are respected, make sure that no member of the election committee is also a member of the national level or an applicant to the national level. Again, for transparency, for fairness, so that we cannot be accused of tampering with the application and stuff like that. This is the reason why I resigned from election committee, because I wanted to apply for the position of causes ambassador, which we will see later. So yeah, making clear in our statutes that this has to be respected, because when I wanted to apply this year, I was not sure what I had to do. So when the decision was made together with the board and the National Auditor of Sweden, now we know what should be done, and I would like that to be made clear for the future. Finally, the standing orders, just clarifying some stuff. The election committee is considered as a committee of ESN Sweden, except that committees have some internal rules, including that they have a chairing team, that they have a national board responsible, and those things do not apply to the election committee. Thus, I would like to, I just made it so that it becomes clear what is the exception for the election committee in the standing orders, and thus there's no confusion possible in our standing orders about what the election committee does. So it's still a committee, but it has a slightly different role, and it's a bit particular. It doesn't have a main chair, it doesn't have a national board member responsible, etc. And what's the, yeah, standing order still repeating that you cannot be in the national board, national coordinator, and in the election committee. And the last one is about the mission of the election committee, which is to ensure the good process of the national platforms by, again, receiving sending the open calls and then receiving the application, and etc. So again, just specifying the mission of the election committee in the standing orders. Do you have any question about that? Or do I leave the word
Afterwards.
time? Okay, the word time.
Leave the stage, but just stay here with us and it was like you were coming.
Can you just please open the proposal?
The first one is about NB presentation to NB.
So I sent 3 main proposals. The first proposal is about the national board presentations for the MPs. Recently there was a move towards that the national board can just send a mandate report with the documents of the national platform, and then they can just stand in front of the national platform and ask for questions. I believe this takes a bit from the kind of main aspect in reminding of accountability of the national board in front of the national platform. When you stand and you have to present what you have done in the recent couple of months since the last national platform, you are reminded, you show the sections what you did, and you give them a chance to actually see and question what you did, and also reminds the national board member of I am accountable towards the sections, I'm working for the sections, and I need to respect what their views and what they're doing. For example, I remember the first national platform I attended, the mandate report were detailed. Like, we have a month, this month I did this and this. It was from all the national board. So it was actually interesting to see, and I still remember the president of ESN Sweden was like, it was a lot about the operating grant, and like she focused a lot, and it was interesting to see how their monthly work and how it's progressed. So the changes, if you can please scroll down, it's very simple. It just adds more down now to the. It's very simple. It just adds this sentence saying that the presentation must be during the plenary session, either live or electronically, followed with a question round. So the national board member will have to stand in front of the national platform, give their presentation of what they did, or if they're not available, they can do it online, Skype or Hangouts, and then there's a question round from the national platform. So this is the first motion. It's another document.
I'm assuming this one.
No, this is the third one. So the second one is about the national coordinator position. The national coordinator positions are actually official part of the national level of ESN Sweden. They play a very major role, and most importantly, they are elected by the national platform. Still, their role, what they do, how many national coordinators position we have, their area of work is totally undefined, and that left the room for the national board to change that according to what they see suitable. In principle, it's nice to have flexibility in there, but on the other hand, it presents instability in the national level, because just in the recent 2 years we had a lot of changes. Positions were cancelled or changed from level to another level. There were not much consultation with anyone, with the national coordinator themselves holding these positions. So this quick change gives takes the stability from the national level. So the suggestion that I'm having is very simple. Having in the statute saying that the number of national coordinators and their specific area of work are defined in the standing orders of ESN Sweden. This way, what happens is the national board can come in the autumn national platform or any virtual national platform before the spring national platform, where the elections happen, and present that this is the structure that we want. If they want to change the structure of the national coordinator and remove one or put a new one, and then they will have to explain that to the network, and then we will be able to hear the national coordinators. Okay, they will be able to hear what they will say, and all opinions will be heard, and people will have more discussion and more stability in the national level. And the last and final proposal is is very simple. It's just about a couple of repeated words removed, numerical. So like establishing the abbreviation, because that was the first time mentioned. So when you put the abbreviation for a person who first time reading the statutes knows what that means, what MP means, and then removing or adding a little bit like just small like to fix the language, and numerical. If you go down there, it's just this part is just it's repeated. If you read the previous part, it's exactly repeated here, so it's redundant to have the same text just in 2 articles in a row. So removing this one, and later on they're just numerical fixes, because when we established the standing orders, we took them from the statutes, and then some of them kept the original numbering, which made stuff confusing. And here, just to make it's biannually, it's because the national platforms and general meeting actually happen in the rotation system, where every section every semester we have a new section according to the rotation system. So it's for the national platforms and the annual general meeting, which is the spring national platform. So just to clarify that both of them are for that go through the rotation system. So it's just the small fixes just to make the things everything concise and in order. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we're open the question round, and we will follow an order. So we start with questions about the motion about election. So David has a question. Someone else has a question about this topic. He can raise his hand like now.
Okay, this is David from ESN Denmark. I have 3 points which I would like to address. It's fine. I don't really think this proposal is that good, and I have firstly because it's very confusing wording in many things, and I wrote down at least 4 things which I think should be rephrased. The first one is change from at least 3 members to 3 members. It says it shall have 3 members. So isn't that the same as saying it had like? Is 4 okay? Is 2 okay? Is it valid if it's 1? Because you don't have a quantifier there. So like, I'm not sure what like. Is it maximum 3? Because if you say it shall have 3, then it's very. You can interpret it in any way.
Yes. Should you say all your points, or should I reply one by one?
One by one.
Okay. Okay. First matter in general, I am very aware I'm not a lawyer, the documentalist, etc. So I'm more than welcome to say that things are not well done, and if it's too confusing, I would rather them be refused and rewarded and reworked for later. That's fine. It's not an emergency, in my opinion. Here I just removed the at least because it was a hard limit, and in my opinion, saying just 3 means that it's kind of a maximum. But if like some people are more competent than me here, so if you think it should be like maximum 3 members, then maybe it's better to propose that. Yeah, I agree.
Then I had a small thing. You mentioned shortcut EC, which is not defined anywhere, which I think means election committee. So if you want to use shortcuts in the statutes, you need to define them first. Okay. Another one. There's a lot of this kind of generic terms like holds the same rights as the main chair would in any other committee. What does that mean? It's very. Okay. So it's again.
About the standing orders, yeah.
This I'm not sure.
About the main chair thing.
Yeah, there was something about the main chair. Yeah, like there's a sentence saying holds the same rights as the main chair would in any other committee, and I again think it's a bit confusing.
For this one, it's actually not entirely my fault. It comes from the it comes from the standing orders, and it's actually, as you can see, point like C dot. It's the other slide. Oh, sorry. It's C.6. It's like including into the standing orders for the committees. So general things about the committees have been defined beforehand, like what is the main chair in the committee, what is the national board responsible, etc. And I'm adding corrections saying, but for the election committee, it's actually different because we don't have a main chair, we don't have, etc. So it's defined beforehand. If you look at the whole document, it makes sense, in my opinion.
Yeah, I didn't have time to check
That's
during the presentation. One feedback was also that some items could be split into smaller ones. There was, I think, few articles where we were trying to say 3 different rules. It's always nicer to split it into smaller ones as well.
Okay.
And the last one was about why do you can you repeat why you think there should be no board member responsible for the election committee?
The role of the election committee in ESN Sweden is to handle the applications for national platforms and virtual national platform, etc. If I am a member of the election committee, for instance, and applying for, let's say, the position of president, it doesn't respect the fairness we're trying to bring with this committee, and somebody could say you might have tampered with the application of another candidate, you know, or you could have seen the application of another candidate, which is already kind of breaking the transparency in a way. Like, you could prepare yourself better, you know, like you have an unfair advantage by being both in the election committee and applying for national board or being in the national board. So that's
Thanks for the explanations.
No worries. So, more question?
No?
Can I finish on the comment?
You can final comment fast.
Very fast. So then there was very good comment from David, like, I'm aware this is not perfect. I would encourage you guys to read it. If you think it's too confusing, I'm more than happy for that to be refused and to be reworked for later. I just wanted to make those statutes clearer and more, so that we don't break them also. So yeah, just you guys have the power here.
Thank you very much. Now we talk, like we start with the motion about the NP presentation for NP. So if you have questions about this one, Janus?
Which motion you said?
The one about the NP presentation for the
This is my personal opinion. This proposal to me feels like you're trying to implement rules that kind of limit the damage the national board can do. But I feel like that's not really the right approach. There has to be a level of trust between the sections and the board. And it feels like a bit more, a bit too controlling to implement these rules in official documents. That's in general. Then I have two more points. You mentioned that previously the report has been broken down month by month. If you would like to follow the national, or anyone wants to follow the national board's work or be up to date, you're welcome to join our board meetings. They're every 2 weeks. You can get the latest information there. And I would also like to say that I personally don't feel like there's a point in extensive reporting on the national board's work at NPs, because even if you disagree with what has been done, it's already been done. So that in that sense does not increase accountability, because even if you know, if I spend all of ESN Sweden's money, it doesn't change the fact if I tell you about it later.
It's clear. Thank you, Janus. Then we have Manus.
Manos, ESN Malmö. I would just, if possible, like to ask for an official opinion from the national board regarding this motion in Taha. Like, do you agree or disagree with that, and why? I would like to, if possible, to have an opinion from the national board regarding
about this
the motion.
okay.
Like, if you agree or disagree with this, and why?
I think I speak for the entire board. It was a month or something since we discussed it, but this is about the transparency of ESN Sweden as an organization, and we don't really want to give our input in this. Instead, we want it to be up to you, the sections, to decide how do you want to see what we work. We want to have your opinion in the matter, not decide by ourselves. All right.
Eric, ESN Göteborg. I'm personally against this proposal since it would reduce the creative freedom when designing national platforms, and I believe it could be way more impactful to do the presentation of the national board in workshop style format instead of a presentation in the plenary.
Thank you. Do you want to have a final comment? Sure.
Quick comment that this is this not putting too much obligation on the national board. It's a simple presentation. They are already obliged to give a report of what they're doing. Putting it in a presentation format will make things more simple, and all the sections will be able to follow much closer. And the creativity will not be reduced. Actually, there are certain things that you need to follow according to your statutes, and reporting is one of them. So.
Okay, thank you. So then we go through the second motion about the national coordinator's positions. So the speaker list is open. We have David.
David from East Denmark. As a current member of the national board in Denmark, we actually have what you, I guess, want right now. Every coordinator position has to be defined in standing orders, and I have to say it's very limiting, and I would totally like to get rid of it right now in our network, so I would go totally opposite, and I would keep what you have, guys. Just my point.
Thank you. Alan, and then we have Mark. Who's first? Alan.
Ellen, ESN Vakra. I'm just wondering in general, when there's something defined in the standing orders of ESN Sweden, why do we have to mention it in the statutes that it's defined in the other document? Because as you said before, the main document to go for is the statutes, and if there's something defined in the statutes, it has priority, and if there's nothing defined in the statutes, but something is defined in the standing orders, then this accounts what is written in the standing orders. So I don't really get why, like, I mean, you could say everything that is not referred to in the statutes, but in the standing orders you could add a paragraph and be like, hey, this has to be referred to. And another procedural question is, now that we had it sometimes that something is misspelled or like wrongly phrased, is there a possibility for these kind of motions to still get accepted, and whether like grammatic mistakes and so on can be redone before we approve it?
The grammatic mistakes about what it's like proposed, so not what we have in the document, but for example, if I don't remember it, like, so, but if in the proposal we have a sentence and there is a grammatical mistake, we can correct it before to vote on that. Like, this is just something formal, like grammatical, so we don't need to vote on that. Like, this is the answer. And
so the reason it's mentioned, the thing is statutes are they set the broader lines. They put the general policy, and then the standing orders comes to explain how things are going in practice. And that's why the statutes are harder to amend, because they are the main policy holders, while standing orders how things are working. So that's why putting reference in the statutes make sure that these positions will be respected, that they need to be regulated in the standing orders. But keeping the actual position in the standing orders will give the flexibility to the national board to change stuff just one MP before, instead of having to do it 2 MPs before to change the structure of the national coordinator's positions.
And Marcus?
If we decide to have the national coordinators defined in our standing orders, we will need to have more MPs or online votings for us to change the positions. It would make us a bit slower, but if that's the transparency and influence you want to have on the national board, then we will follow that.
Alice, Parliamentary Manager. As one of the national coordinator here in ES in Sweden, I like it's a comment. I like the idea that you get the coordinator more involved in the official document, in the standing orders. But also if you add the you add it into those documents, is it also like kind of frame and narrow down our responsibility?
The idea is just to mention, like the document can be thought about and talked about, discussed later if this passes, but it can be just a partnership manager responsible of contacting the commercial partners. So it doesn't have to be very limiting, but just the field of work.
Malin, National Body Coordinator. Partly covered by Marcus and Alice, but I also do want to point out the fact that it makes it a little bit harder to be flexible regarding where ESN is going when it comes to National Party Coordinator being defined as the as is mentioned right now. So have that into consideration. Thank you.
And mine is just like mine is just an external comment and input for you, like for your network. Usually, like it's you always have to consider wisely if you want to put too many regulation in the documents that support your body, because like your organization, because you also have a very high majority to change the standing orders. That is 3/4. That is like almost like the total like support. So this is just an input for the future. Also reconsider maybe to have different majority for the statute and for the standing orders, because in general like this is also a mistake that we corrected in ISAN International, because as I said, like these two documents has two different rules, and the statute should be like the main one a bit more complicated to change, while the standing orders should be a bit more flexible. So it's also my suggestion, like think about change the majority for the standing orders at least, because it's a very high majority to reach. And if you want to go so much into details in regulating your organization, you have to consider that it's very difficult to change this document right now. So just for you to think about it in the future. Tal, you want a last comment?
Yeah, two very quick points. One about the flexibility. When the autumn MP comes, the national board would have already been 3, 4, or 5 months in their position. They already can see what things are gonna in which direction, and I think it's easy for them to consider if they want to change the national coordinator position or add something or remove something, and propose it in that MP before the next MP where the election happens. Second thing, as a previous national coordinator whose position changed from national coordinator to just an OC member between day and night without consulting, and 2 national coordinators were merged without their consultant also, I can see it's really bad that it's good to have at least the opinions heard.
Thank you. And then we have the last. Sorry.
So if during this NP something gets approved that changes a part of the statutes or the standing orders, but it's referencing to other parts of the statutes or standing orders where it would be contradictory, what happens in these cases? So for example, if we decide to rename the CBETA coordinator or ESN CBETA coordinator to a national event manager, and this position is named somewhere else as well?
It's next NP, you will take care of that and you will change that as well.
So for half a year or like until the virtual NP there would be an inconsistency in the statutes and standing orders then?
We can like I can double check which is the deadline for you to propose amendments on the spot, because honestly I don't remember by heart. I don't know if you remember by heart, but you also have already a lot of inconsistency. So like it's you can
just
also work with
quickly,
it.
sorry, I can just quickly say that if the changes to the statute is not in effect until it's approved again in another MP. So if we change the naming now, it will stay the sea battle coordinator until the next MP where we approve it again, and that's when the statute's changed and the name would officially be changed.
Let's say that in general, when you propose something, you are like it happens that you don't consider some part, but it would be important always to double check in order to change like the term, like, or in order to have both documents like consistent, like one. If they're like they have to be consistent. So if you propose something, you have to check that what you're proposing, where it's like if it's mentioned in some other documents or in some other article, in order to have like consistency. But it can happen. Okay, so the last motion that I presented, it's more about rewarding numbers, etc. So if you have some questions.
Can you show that again, please?
Can you show that again?
Thank you.
Is it 3? Number?
Yes, the last one.
It's grammatical.
Grammatical.
You can always take it from full screen.
Oh, okay, it's the different documents. Right. This one? My mouse.
So Matt.
Oh, you can need to.
Yeah.
Okay, the speaker list is open, Matt.
Matt Lund, it might seem silly, but I just wanted to, for consistency's sake, point out that the M in annual general meeting was not capitalised in one of the paragraphs. So just correcting that.
Okay, this is a grammatical like adjustment, no? Like
Yeah.
okay. So you can get in touch with her, and if it's just like one letter, like it's something that we can adjust. Someone else? No? So the speaker list is closed. Thank you, Ta. Thank you, Pia. So now we go back to the procedural proposal from Jonathan. So I first of all, one comment. What do you want to say something? No, because you're looking at me in a very weird face.
This is natural.
The closed session about the candidates. Okay, to add it to the agenda.
Yeah.
So first of all, I have to say that the agenda has been sent like 2 weeks ago or something like that. So it's a bit unfortunate, like to ask it on Saturday, because it will mean that we will have to cut something for sure. Anyway, there is a reason why we didn't put this session in the agenda, because I saw that is something that you used to do, like in Sweden. We talked with the board, and the reason why we didn't add it, it's because we think that when you we think that any kind of doubt or question that you could have for a candidate should be asked in front of them, and should be, let's say, polite enough or fair enough, or not controversial, to be able to ask that in front of the candidates. And also that is not very fair for someone that is already exposed himself in front of the whole network to have to receive some what would have like attack or also good words, and not be able to answer, and not be able to clarify why maybe he decide to have, I don't know, a certain behavior or to present a certain proposal. You also have during the MP a lot of time to talk between each other, like if you had something to maybe a bit controversial to say, like you have the social program, I mean, you can share, like if you have some doubts, you can share it with your with the other section. And also we had the question time yesterday to ask to the candidates their like
your doubts or any kind of issue. So for on behalf of the chairing team and on behalf of the board, we like there is a reason why we didn't start the closed session, because we think that is not fair toward the candidate. Anyway, the section are deciding, so we can also have a vote, and if the majority of the sections want to have a closed session, we can have a closed session. But I think it's like for me it was important to explain why we decided, because it was made on purpose not to have a closed session for the candidates.
Yeah. I understand the points you made, and I truly do. But if we're going to go to a vote on this, it should also be unbiased and people understanding as to why the importance of having a closed vote is all. Having a closed conversation on candidates is also important.
Why a closed, like you can explain why a closed conversation on the candidate is important.
It's not going against exactly what you said, but because it's been done in ESN Sweden in the past, I'm a man of tradition. I like to go by the book, personally myself. That's how I am. That's how I've always been. But yeah, I feel it's essential because I have spoken to certain people here at this MP who have talked about it and why it wasn't contained in the first place. Now, it only came to my attention probably because I'm also a man who's also slightly lazy sometimes, so I didn't read through the entire agenda for the upcoming MP. But now that I've spoken to people who are present at this MP, and I can see that there is a concern for the lack of it being left out. Yes, it is late. Yes, the agenda may have to change, but I do feel as if it's quite important.
For the lack, sorry, like a concern for the lack? I didn't understand you.
There was a concern for the fact that it was a lack of this being left out, so therefore it's lacking. But it's just, I was raising concern perhaps because other people were unwilling or didn't want to raise their voice on this issue. So I thought I'd be this person.
I understand your point. Again, guys, you vote on the agenda. Like the agenda was shared like 2 weeks ago, and if you didn't even have time to go through the agenda and to read what you were voting, this is a problem. Like this is a problem. No, but like this is a. No, like we can have we can have a vote, but I mean, if you didn't realize that it was not on the agenda because you didn't read the agenda, this is also your responsibility. So anyway, we wanted to explain and to express why we think that despite this is a tradition of ESN Sweden, we don't really like the idea to have a closed session about the candidates, but we can have a vote. So like we can do okay. We have we can kind of open a special list.
Keep in mind also there's a lot of new ESN members who are currently this is their first MP, so they're not really aware of how these things actually work properly, so that's why it's good to keep tradition.
No. We can have different opinion about work. What does it mean to work properly? Because
Italy and Sweden, different places.
Change is nice. So we open a speaker.
Ellen, yes, and I don't want to give my opinion about whether this session should happen or not. I just want to ask what the proposed time frame would be to have this closed session, and whether it would only be for the national board or also the national coordinator candidates, or two separate sessions, and also I don't know who would be the entity deciding which other points would get kicked off the official agenda, but that would I think also be something that influences the decision whether something important would be kicked off.
So
everything is important.
We are already late in the agenda, so it would mean that to have the closed session, just to answer you the body entitled to decide how to change the agenda is the steering team. So the option is to delay one of the session of the afternoon or the interactive session about national and local level cooperation and quality assurance, or the small session about like review, inclusive recruitment, causes of ESN and blocks. Because we are already late, and we will need at least 20-ish minutes for the close session. So like this is the only amount of time that could allow us to go on with the agenda without finish at half past 8. Also because the room will close.
Guillaume and Yetubari. A quick question for you, Noor. Since you're saying it seems to be like a Swedish tradition, I've seen that in a few other countries, but I assume, yeah, maybe it's only Sweden that does, and a few countries that do that. How it works, for instance, in Italy, and how it works in Italy.
Okay. For example, for me, so international gas perspective, I never, like maybe there are some other countries that do the same, but I never heard about that. So none of the country that, like not on the international MP that I attended, they had this closed session. Like in Italy, we just have the question round. It can be very, very long. Like in Italy, let's say it's, I had 2 hours question round. So it's very, very long, but it's always in front of the candidate. So maybe in Italy we are a bit more sharp and intense, let's say. But it's always like it's just a very long question round.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
David from Denmark, another international guest perspective is also that we do it in Denmark. Not always, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Personally, I like drama, so I'm up for it. They also did in Norway, by the way.
So it's like
And
something from
Because we're too passive.
For yes.
In the south, we don't do it.
Should I keep this in minutes or? I like drama.
Especially when it's not peace platform. Is this your platform?
Alice, partition answer. I mean, also I doubt about the tradition thing, and also my personal opinion is I agree with not having this closed discussion. Like, if you have any question, you should just ask ask in front of the person and have more transparency. If you talk behind the person, it's called trash talking, and create more drama. I also like drama.
Eric, and then we have also Matt.
Eric, yes, in the interest of effectiveness, since we're approaching lunch as well, I propose that the people interested in having close discussion round gather during the lunch and actually like create a proposal to change the agenda, since it would kind of impact the agenda in a fairly big way. Since this discussion would, from my experience, take a pretty long time in a group of this size.
Thank you. I totally agree with that. Like, so you can think about what you want to delay from the agenda and make a web proposal. Matt?
Yeah, Matt Lund. I'm really behind what Noor is saying. I don't believe that we should have a closed session. In the interest of conducting ourselves as a professional organisation, if you cannot conduct yourself, if you don't feel open enough in the organisation to express your opinions freely, then we're doing something really wrong. You should feel comfortable here expressing your opinions and expressing them in a professional manner. This should be done in an open atmosphere where both sides can counteract or respond. That's only fair to both sides. And yeah, we're not representing the values of the organisation if we have to have a closed session.
Thank you, Matt. My beloved
I can just speak very loud. I was going to suggest that
not a bad thing if you are if you respect the other person. So if you have a particular issue with someone who is applying for a position and you want to question them about something, just do it in person. You can ask Noor for some advice on how to phrase it in a polite way. And you can talk to each other, talk to other people who are voting if that's your concern. However, if you do want, if this is because you want a question round, not only because you want it to be secret, but you want a question round where you discuss all candidates together, if that's also an issue of matter here, then you should propose that, but not to be secret.
Thank you, Ariane. David?
David from Denmark again, aka Drama Queen. I just wanted to say that maybe to a bit defend people who might want to have a closed session is that not everybody might feel comfortable in, or brave enough to, speak up loud, especially in front of the candidates. And not everybody can be like me, that I just speak up my mind, whatever, I just shoot it out. Which is also sometimes bad, but some people might feel a bit intimidated to say things in front of the candidates. So we should also take those people into consideration.
But just so, Jonathan, it's time for Jonathan to talk, and then after Jonathan, please. After Jonathan. And can we close the speaker list afterwards? Because the lunch will be cold. Shorted.
Jonathan, ESN Mallow, I'll make this quick. I agree with what Eric said in regards to we want to make a proposal for it during the break time. Absolutely, we're all very starving, I understand that. So I propose then after Noor, we have the speaker list closed, after Manos, after Manos, speaker list is closed, and then we just have a quick vote, section by section, and then we get knock on the head. Perfect. Then we go for lunch. Happy?
So, can we close the speaker list? Someone against? Abstain? So, after none of the speaker list is closed. I just want to comment fast from David. I agree that we should respect also the people that are not brave enough, but here, I think also that we should, there is someone that is running, and put himself, in front of the judgment of the whole plenary. So I think that we also should respect them. And this is just not very neutral comment, but I also really would like to, from the section that want to have this session, I really would like to have an argumentation that is something more about disease of tradition. So I would like to hear for, because maybe I don't see the reason, but maybe there is a reason, so I'm not arguing on that, I'm not discussing on that, but I would like to hear something that is a bit more than we want that because it's a tradition of Eastern Sweden. I would like to understand also the reasons why behind. And Manos, and then we go to lunch. Manos?
Manos, yes, in Malmö. It's more like a comment question. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure whether closed session will be ideal or not, but I heard some opinions that the closed session can be viewed as a trust talking or is against our values, etc. And that problematizes me a lot because closed sessions are used in the network in general for other topics. They are used when we have prospect sections at the national level. They are used at the international level for prospect countries. So since closed sections are used, should we assume and conclude that we are doing trust talking and we are violating our values from the beginning of our existence until nowadays? Are closed sessions good in one context and bad in another, or are they good or bad in general?
Which is a question?
Yep.
I think it's up on each of us to have a different opinion on that. And before going to lunch, I want to stress again to stress out Eric's proposal. So all the sections that would like to have this session are invited to talk all the sections can talk among each other. And I also would like to invite you to propose what you would like to delete from the agenda.
in order to have a proposal where we add the session and we also clarify what we take out from the agenda in order to allow the section to vote and to be aware of what they are taking out and taking in.
Did we not just agree that we'd have a quick vote to see if we should actually do that in the first place?
You want a vote now?
A quick vote, and actually, if the majority of people actually want to do it, if we say each section is named yes, no, abstain, and then we can, if it's a yes vote, then we can do what Eric just said. Makes sense. Just
I would like to have a vote when we already have the change of the agenda. So to have a vote with we add that and we delete that.
Yeah.
Yeah. After lunch.
No.
So now we go to lunch. We are a bit late. We are a bit late, like 10 minutes late. Then we will have the action plan presentation from the board here. And another fast thing, guys, thanks to our lovely LC, we will have our yes, it's too weird for me to say that. The coffee break, it will be available during the whole afternoon. In order, if you feel very tired, you can just quietly go out, drink a coffee, and come back. And also, because let's see how the afternoon will go, but we lost a lot of time, and maybe we could also delay the coffee break, but with this possibility to go out and go in, to refresh your thoughts.
One final question before we leave that has to do with that. Do we have time to openly question the candidates during the voting?
If you want, you can also propose to have another question round for the candidates. For example, it's on you. You can also decide to have not an open session, to have not a closed session, to have an open session. If you feel that you still sorry, I'm very tired. That you have still some questions for the candidates, we can also do that. I just would like to ask you to make a proposal where you also take in consideration what should be deleted from the agenda, and take in consideration what we can finish around 7 maximum. Yeah, in the afternoon.
But this cannot be included in the voting time? In the voting time tomorrow morning?
Tomorrow morning it's already packed, and we also have the voting tomorrow.
So you can't do it during the voting?
No, so you, if you want to make a change, take in consideration just Saturday, please.
I know. After lunch.